President Tinubu's special envoy to Niger Republic arrived in Niamey, the country's capital. Shortly after their arrival, the envoys met with the coup plotters and held talks on the restoration of constitutional order in the country. Chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, dispatched a delegation to Niger Republic with a mandate to expeditiously resolve the current political impasse in the country. The action was in line with the resolution reached at the end of the extraordinary summit of ECOWAS, which held last weekend in Abuja. According to a statement by the special advisor to Mr. President Ajuri Ngelale, the delegation, headed by former Nigerian head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, retired, left for Niamey on Thursday following a briefing by President Tinubu at the State House in Abuja. Joining me now is Professor of Political Science and International Relations, who was also former Deputy Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Somalia, Professor Babafemi Badejo. Thank you for joining us on the news tonight. Prof, you mentioned in an earlier article about the need for diplomacy, which according to you is superior to threats of use of force. But how has that worked for us in the past, particularly when you consider the impasse in countries like Burkina Faso and Mali?
Well, the impasse in Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Mali are more recent problems. We have used diplomacy in solving several problems around the world, but in our own neighborhood, we've used diplomacy in handling the several problems that cropped up in Guinea-Bissau at the end of fighting in Sierra Leone and Liberia. It was diplomacy that led to the agreement. General Abdulsalami Abubakar had used diplomacy in Niger in putting in place the process that resulted in Mamadou Yusufu, followed by Bazoum. So the diplomacy works. The only problem is that diplomacy takes time. Diplomacy doesn't go by orders and instructions the way we are used to dealing with ourselves. It's more cultured to embark on diplomacy as human beings, as opposed to the war of the jungle, the behavior of the jungle.
It sounds like with diplomacy, the 7-day ultimatum given by ECOWAS wouldn't work. But are you also considering the involvement of Russia in all of this, the kind of support and, perhaps legitimacy these military juntas are getting from Russia?
Well, I don't want to single any particular major leader out, any particular major power out, because several powers are involved. If you're looking at the Security Council, perhaps the only one of the permanent 5 whose name we are not constantly hearing is that of the United Kingdom. France, United States, Russia, China, they are all in Niger. So perhaps singling one out is not the appropriate thing to do. It is for us as a people, as a country, as a sub-region, to think about how do we get the interests of our respective countries and the interests of our sub-region fulfilled in all this.
You have talked about the cost and benefits analysis on the Nigerian Authority if ECOWAS will be considering a military intervention. How well would you say that the West African region, or particularly the ECOWAS community, has fared in that regard in the past?
Well, in the past, Nigeria has always carried the brunt of the costs involved, whether in terms of the regular costs or in terms of special operations of this type. When we have been involved in military efforts, it is us. And I'm not complaining as a Nigerian that this is something bad to do. It is necessary. It is useful to be involved with your sub-region, because the way to survive is not as individual countries. But there are also limits within all that. You then have to also see, when you have pulled together, it used to be 16 countries, Mauritania left is 15, Chad is a very close one. You have to look at what are we getting out of it, and what should be the level of your involvement in all the problems that are cropping up. But yes, a regional hegemon that is worth its salt should be ready to put forward more resources than the others, should be happy to push along, but should be seeing what are its own benefits. We spent close to $15 billion in Liberia and Sierra Leone, but we abandoned the whole ship as soon as it was finished. Other major powers are the ones benefiting from those countries.
All right.
I remember sitting at a dinner in which the Chinese ambassador responded to the Nigerian ambassador that if you dig a well, it doesn't mean that you will drink the water alone. When the Nigerian ambassador was talking about how much China has taken over the situation in Liberia, it's for us to also be proactive and think about how do we create opportunities beyond our banks that are in these places.
I'm afraid we'll have to continue this conversation some other time. Professor of Political Science and International Relations, Professor Obafemi Badijo, thank you so much for talking to us on the news tonight.
Thanks very much for having me. All the best.